If you're a Giants fan, there's probably 3 good things about the 2021 NFL season. 3 good things. Number 1, Dave Gettleman's gone. Number 2, Joe Judge is gone. Number 3, the season is done. Like, that's got to be it, right? Can't really be any other good news to come out of last season, other than the fact that that season's gone, your incompetent-ass general manager's gone, and your nincompoop head coach is also gone. And maybe this should serve as a good lesson for other teams, especially the Giants. You know, sometimes when you look at a guy and they're a former GM in the NFL and they're available for you to hire as a general manager, maybe you need to really step back and ask yourself the question of, if they were really good as a general manager, why are they available for me to hire now? As Dave Gettleman clearly showed that he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He sucks. And then as far as Joe Judge, you know, this whole thing about Joe Judge, why do teams keep going back to the Patriots coaching tree? Have you not learned the lessons of how bad this can be? Time after time after time, former Patriots assistant after former Patriots assistant fails as an NFL head coach, and yet teams keep going back to that tree to pluck the rotten Belichick fruit. And in this case, similar to Brian Flores, when you look at Joe Judge, it felt like you were out sleuthing yourself and trying to go get a young guy versus getting the right guy. I mean, you had heard about him potentially getting some interviews, maybe being some type of a candidate, but for a job like the Giants, Joe Judge was really, really a questionable hire at the time, and a couple of years later he's gone, and for good reason. So thankfully for Giants fans, that era is over, E-R-R-O-R, and it's time for a new era, E-R-A. It's Joe Schoen that's hired to be the team's new general manager, and of course he brought with him the offensive coordinator from the Buffalo Bills, Brian Daboll. So instead of doing it the way the Giants have done it the past couple of years, maybe you want to do it the Bills way, which maybe excites some Giants fans. One thing I will say that's not concerning, but interesting, is that the new regime decided to run it back with Danny Dimes. And maybe they looked at the 2022 draft and looked at the quarterback class and say, there's nobody with us really hitching our wagon to, and you go out there in the market, like, what are we really going to do? Like, maybe you have no choice. Run it back with Danny Dimes and see what you got. But, ooh, good luck to you. I don't know why you'd want to tie any of your future to the failed draft quarterback of a previous regime. It's just me. That's just me. Probably explains why they made sure they signed somebody like Tyrod Taylor in free agency, because they said, you know, Tyrod's not great, but if Danny Dimes stinks or gets hurt or either, then at least you've got a somewhat competent backup behind him and Tyrod Taylor you can maybe win a couple of games with. And you look at the Giants, you know, they've got talent deficiencies all over the place. So, yeah, you could talk about needing to spend big money in free agency. They're going to need to spend money in free agency, but they're really going to have to hit some home runs in the draft. And I think a number of people like some of what they did in the draft, especially with their first 2 picks in Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal, getting better in the trenches. And I look at those 2 picks and I say, you know, those are solid kind of foundational picks. They're not picks that are going to turn you around dramatically, but they are the type of picks that if you're in that spot, and especially if you're not going with a quarterback, you probably could do worse than that. And at least you could say now, if Andrew Thomas can manage to be a good left tackle, you plunk big-ass Evan Neal over on the right side, you've got bookend tackles that are young that can protect whatever young quarterback you end up ultimately bringing into this situation. The drafting of Wendell Robinson in round 2 was interesting because that felt like a pretty big reach. That kind of came out of nowhere. You know, why are teams reaching for some of these guys and what was a really, really good wide receiver class? I don't get, but they did nonetheless. But when you look at Azidu and Flood and Bellinger and Belton, like some of these rookies are going to get opportunities to play and make an impact this year because this team is not very good. Their talent cupboard is very barren, if you will. As I look ahead to the Giants in 2022, I do think they're a solid pass defense team. And the other thing I really like about them is with bringing in Brian Daboll is their play calling is going to be infinitely better than it was under Joe Judge. You know, taking a knee on 3rd and 8 deep in your own territory or whatever it was against Washington. God, that is the you need to be fired because you just quit. Well, you're not going to have that with Daboll. And this is a guy, we could talk about Josh Allen until kingdom come, but clearly his work with Daboll the past couple of years made a big difference in his career. So if you maybe are holding on to any delusions of hope that Danny Dimes can be the guy, Daboll's going to be the one to get it out of him. And if not, you get that young quarterback next year and you have confidence in your head coach that he's going to be able to work with a young quarterback. Now you're going to say, well, Daboll gave up the play calling. Yeah, sure. But at the end of the day, it's his offense, it's his scheme, and don't think he's not going to have a significant influence on what they do offensively. But you should like that if you're a Giants fan. The concerns, there's concerns all over the place. I really look at three major spots. Number one, Danny Dimes. I mean, this is a guy that was drafted 6th overall in 2019, yet to live up to any of that hyper billing, yet to live up to that draft position. There's a reason the team didn't pick up the 5th-year option on him. He's a massive concern and a massive question mark. And then you look at Saquon Barkley. This guy was taken 2nd overall. And you look at Saquon and you say, last year, he played most of the year, but he wasn't really all that good. Like, this was supposed to be a generational Hall of Fame type of running back if you take him number 2 overall, and he just hasn't been that. If the Giants are going to do anything this year, it's got to be because Saquon Barkley has a big year. And then you look at Kenny Golladay. Here's a guy they gave big money to in free agency to have 0 touchdown catches and less than 600 yards receiving last year. He was a total bust. And you had people in the New York area, the media there, fans there, talking about whether or not Kenny Golladay should be cut because his effort was so half-assed in practice and training camp. He knew he wasn't going to get cut, but goddamn, that's not a good sign. Those are 3 notable pieces on the offense that you have major significant questions about. Not the best place to be. Now, if Kenny Golladay plays a little bit more like healthy Detroit Lions Kenny Golladay, you've got something there. If Saquon Barkley could play like, maybe rookie year Saquon Barkley, you got something there. If Danny Dimes cannot suck hind tit, well, at least you won't be so terrible at the quarterback position. How about that? Looking ahead to the schedule for the Giants, early on in the year, weeks 2 through 4, they've got 3 straight home games. Like, if Daboll and this team want to give some type of illusion of competitiveness, you want to be able to handle some business at home against teams like Carolina, Dallas, Chicago. Not saying they will or can win any of those games. They could, it's the NFL. Any given Sunday, anything can happen. But you were kind of given a gift there early in the year to have 3 straight home games. You want to take advantage of that. And then you look at weeks 7 and 8, and then you've got the bye, and then weeks 10 and 11. Here's another opportunity for the Giants to potentially pick up a few wins. They go to Jacksonville, to Seattle, have the bye. Then they host Houston. They host Detroit. Like, if you're a type of person that looks at this Giants team and really wants to buy into what Daboll's going to do with that offense, and you're going to get a big year out of Saquon Barkley, you're going to get more out of Kenny Golladay, Danny Dimes is going to have his best year as a pro. These are the games right here in the middle of the season that they're going to take advantage of, and you're going to start thinking about them making the playoffs this year. I am not ready to make that leap whatsoever. I'm going to play relatively conservatively with my Giants pick. I think they're the worst team in the division. I think they'll be better with new leadership, but it's going to take time with them. I think they'll win like 6 games, and they will bring up the rear in the NFC East.